I'm very excited to once again be talking about PIGFACE. If you don't know, PIGFACE is a low poly retro shooter kind of thing released into early access back in September. It comes from Tito Loves You, or Tito, and I also had the opportunity to interview him, which I recommend checking out. I think it's really cool that we get some insight into his creative process, especially at this stage, because I feel like in the indie game space, he's going to be a creative force moving forward. So I also recommend checking that out. But today we're talking about PIGFACE because it just had a new update, which brought along with it some new weapons and a whole new map for us to explore and play around in. So before I talk about each new element in depth, I'm just going to run through the list of changes and additions that have been made so that you're tracking on what comes in this update. So we obviously got the new map, the abandoned mall, which came along with it, 2 new cutscenes, and obviously the mission that we're being sent there to do. We got 2 new guns, the USAS shotgun and the dual-wielded M9 pistols. 3 new melee weapons, the chainsaw, hockey stick, and the big spiked pipe. And we also got a new special ability mask, the classic Jason-style hockey mask. We also saw new armor, which is made of metal, obviously offering a little bit more protection than the standard body armor that we currently have. New crosshair accessibility options, and finally, my favorite addition, maybe outside of the map itself, when you explode, shoot, or dismember enemies, eventually they may turn into a big, bloody pile of giblets, which is fantastic. Now, to hone in on these changes, I'm going to talk more specifically about each of them. The map, to start with, is fantastic, and I feel like already Tito has done such a great job of including a lot of variance in the actual environments that we're exploring. The map represents a much larger structure, maybe outside of what we saw on the kind of metro rail station kind of map where we had a pretty large interior area underneath there. But having a big building to get to explore with some large open spaces is a lot of fun. And obviously we're getting the variance of having a snow map, which is just in time for the holiday season, which I am thoroughly pleased with. This map also has us encountering a lot more traps than what we're used to. Obviously, we did have the mine traps that we've been running into quite a bit, but now we have turrets that automatically lock onto you and really mess up your day depending on what avenue you choose to approach. So while you still have a lot of options in how you choose to approach accomplishing the objectives, you do kind of have to find the right lane or brain a tool that'll allow you to open up a lane of travel if a turret is defending that position. It does a great job of adding a whole new element that can react to your playstyle while not just being an entire nuisance that limits the player's freedom. Visually, the interior mall space continues to capture this gritty, weird, early 2000s thing that I'm just impressed he's able to be so consistent with, given the kind of variance in locations that we've seen. The racks of clothes, the porno store, the train that now circles one of the rooms, and the Pac-Man style opening at the center is all something that kind of just walks right out of a 90s, early 2000s mall, and getting to fight the jumpsuit gain in there just fits perfectly. Ultimately, the map continues Tito's streak of creating environments that are gloomy and inhospitable while somehow also being cozy and familiar. The 2 new guns also feel pretty great. The USAS, I feel like, is excellent in really tight spaces, especially if you go back and you play through the motel level or the inside of the farmhouse. Getting to blast people with that level of destruction at that speed is a ton of great fun. And the addition of the dual-wielded pistols obviously allows you to cosplay as Max Payne or John Woo, especially if you use the mask that gives you the slow time at kind of, I think it's random events or maybe it's on kill, but absolutely creates a excellent vibe. And especially doing some of these jumping off a building, taking out some people kind of stuff feels a lot cooler when you got 2 pistols in each hand, or 1 pistol in each hand. You're dual wielding, that's what I mean. You know what I mean. The melee weapons are also fantastic. The chainsaw, hockey stick, obviously you can see Tito's Canadian side shining through and giving us some classic weapons of destruction, especially coming up against a maul with a hockey stick. Just feels very like 80s Warriors kind of style inspired, which is fun. The chainsaw obviously goes excellent with kind of the masks that we've been able to play with, especially I think we have a mask that's kind of almost leather facey as well. And when paired with the new mask, the hockey mask, it kind of changes the whole game and really opens up the melee potential to all the maps, which is something I do feel like was lacking because the enemies would take you out so quickly on some of those maps. If you tried to get close enough to do like a melee only run, you would really have to kind of ease people out and pull them to you and do a little bit of jankiness to really effectively utilize the melee strategy. Whereas now, if you equip the hockey mask, you get 5 seconds of invulnerability for each kill, and the caveat, the trade-off more so, is that you get 25% additional gun damage. So you have to really be chaining these kills together and focusing on taking out the enemies with the guns to make it the most effective it can be. And once again, this is another addition that, like I said, kind of goes back and changes your ability to approach the whole game. I really like that Tito, and he did put out a roadmap of stuff that he's going to add, and I feel like generally the changes he wants to make illustrate the idea that with each edition, he's not just adding a new, quest, a new map or something like this. He's adding tools that will be at our disposal, which will allow us to experience all the content in the game in a new way, which I find just very cool, especially in a game like this where the tools that you bring into the map and you pick up really shape the kind of sandbox experience at your disposal. And especially as we get more things like the mines and the grenade launchers and the masks that allow us to play differently, I think we're going to find so much replayability in this game as it continues to grow. The new metal armor also allows you to be quite a bit beefier, but at the cost of a 20% decrease in movement speed. I've found that while this does feel better in the sense that I'm taking what feels like more appropriate damage from the enemies, the cost to the movement speed is just too high for me, and I just love running and gunning in and out of corridors too much to really find myself using the metal armor all that much. The new Crosshair accessibility options seem nice. I'll put an example of me flipping through them here on screens so you can see what they are, but I personally haven't found a need to mess with them all that much. But I do love generally when developers spend time to put accessibility options into games, so I applaud it. The last thing that I want to touch on is the narrative. I am obviously kind of a lore freak, or, I find myself very much interested in the story that games have to offer. And while the story is very lightweight here in PIGFACE, because I don't believe that you actually have to engage with it to enjoy the game because the systems are so fun, there is something compelling going on behind the scenes. The relationship between Caesar and the person who's directly employing, if you could say employing, we're really being forced to do this, right? Because we have a bomb implanted at our skull. The relationship between the big boss and the guy who employs us seems to be withering. There seems to be some conflict internal to the organization that we're working for. And us being this fixer, this person who's hired to go and basically commit massive acts of violence against drug competitors or other gangs, is an interesting spot for us to exist in when we might find an internal conflict arising between our own faction. I think at this point, the thing that would interest me the most from a story component would be to see a map where we get a choice as to which objective to complete. And by choosing to complete one objective or the other, we align ourselves either with the person directly employing us that we talk to on the phone, or with Caesar, the big boss of whatever shadowy organization we work for. This could fit the template of how the objectives work for each mission very well, and I think it'd be interesting to see a reality where we get one map that results in one cutscene or the other, depending upon which objectives we complete. Maybe that's something I would even like to see retroactively added, where if we do the optional objectives, maybe we do get an additional little piece of information kind of clarifying some component of the story, or just something that gives us more insight into, what actually is going on here. Oh, and I do think the game absolutely needs some easier way for me to go back and watch the cutscenes, especially because the content is being released, on this roadmap. So we're going to go months in between. We might see the next cutscene. And I think rather than doing a whole playthrough as a refresher, it would be convenient if there was some kind of like the story so far kind of thing, or maybe not even that complex. Just add a little like files window on the computer and let me just go back and watch the cutscenes and maybe read through the mission objectives and, the little mission briefing that we've had for all the other stuff in kind of like a chronological order or something. Maybe that could be a cool way to integrate it diegetically. Am I using a big fancy video game word there? Into the game in a way that seems cohesive with the rest of the story. I don't know, just a thought. Overall, I am just excited about this game. I think it's such a refreshing change of pace from everything else that I'm playing, and it tugs on my nostalgic heartstrings so much, and I think Tito is just fantastic. So I recommend checking it out. It's in early access right now on Steam. You should play it. I would love to hear your thoughts if you have played it in the comments down below, and I'll see you guys later. Bye.